up being one of the largest food recalls in U.S. history.
Recall comes after federal officials confirmed salmonella contamination at a Georgia facility.
And now the recall is being expanded to include every item made from peanut products at that plant in the past 2 years.
Peanut butter. It's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry and one of the most popular items on store shelves. But in January 2009, it's deadly. Peanut products are laced with the salmonella bacteria. It's sickening and even killing people from coast to coast. There's a race against time to trace the source and stop what's turning into a nationwide panic.
Food and Drug Administration is advising Americans not to eat any products made with peanut butter or peanut paste until further notice. And that includes cookies and cakes, ice cream, as well as other foods containing peanut butter made at this Georgia plant.
Food safety watchdog attorney Bill Marler knows what this kind of catastrophe looks like.
I've been involved in every major and many minor foodborne illness outbreaks that have occurred in the United States in the last 20+ years. They're all tragic, but they all appropriately freak people out.
By February 2009, Congress is demanding answers from this man, Stewart Parnell, President and CEO of Peanut Corporation of America.
One of the things I'm going to do today is ask Mr. Parnell from the Peanut Corporation of America if he'd like to open this and sample some of the products that he didn't think were a problem in sending out for the rest of us to eat.
Stewart Parnell has apparently lost his appetite. He declines the offer to taste the products. And with good reason. Evidence is mounting that this was no accident.
For 2 years, the operators of the Georgia plant at the center of the investigation may have knowingly sold contaminated products.
Stewart Parnell's peanut empire is about to come crashing down. But it was never supposed to end this way. In the rolling hills of central Virginia, peanuts are a major cash crop. It's here that Hugh Parnell, Stewart's father, stakes his claim with the tiny company Parnell's Peanuts. In 1977, Hugh overhauls a roasting facility in Gorman, Texas, and rechristens his namesake company as Peanut Corporation of America. By 1994, revenues soar to more than $20 million. Hugh cashes out and retires. But peanuts are a family tradition. So in 2000, Stewart Parnell buys PCA. Food safety advocate and ethics professor Darren Detweiler says Stewart's ambitions are bigger than his father's.
When Stewart Parnell took over the Peanut Corporation of America, he radically expanded the company, both in terms of size and the amount of profit that it was making.
PCA expands to another plant in Blakely, Georgia. And at its height, Stewart Parnell triples revenue in just 3 years. He's on the move. His brother Michael becomes PCA's #1 peanut broker.
His brother was now a buyer of product for him. And it wasn't just peanuts. Peanut powder or peanut dust that was being used in a lot of different products. And that's great business for him because now he's able to use this different version of the product.
From ice cream to energy bars to frozen Thai dinners to dog food, PCA lands new clients throughout the food supply chain. But PCA is also hiding dirty little secrets, shoddy sanitation, low-grade peanuts, and a corporate culture built upon intimidation, low wages, and exploitation of workers.
In Texas, the management was run by a handful of white guys, with all the workers being Mexican Americans. And in Georgia, it was run by a handful of white guys, and all the workers were African American. It was like, you know, a plantation. It was like run like a plantation.
And just like those bad old days, the work is profitable for the man on top. Parnell snaps up another company in Plainview, Texas, and a roasting and blanching company in Virginia, close to his custom-built home on a 5-acre estate in Lynchburg. Parnell runs his growing PCA dynasty from a converted garage behind the house.
The Parnell brothers especially were making a pretty good living brokering and selling this product around the United States.
PCA processes around 2% of America's peanuts. Yet they supply product to more than 200 companies, including giants like Kellogg's and General Mills.
PCA had a pretty broad business. They had a nice little corner of the market. That 2% was, pretty valuable.
Schools, nursing homes, FEMA relief kits. Even America's troops overseas rely on PCA.
Their products primarily went into then other products, whether peanut butter cookies or crackers, and they were these big tins of peanut butter that primarily went to hospitals and old folk homes. I think that tells you a lot about sort of how integrated our food system is, that you don't really even know who's making your stuff.
So who's making sure the food is safe? Federal food safety agencies are mandated to monitor and inspect factories. But with limited resources, these agencies depend on private companies to police their own operations. Perhaps surprisingly, given the scandal that will later emerge, Stewart Parnell sits on the government's Peanut Standard Board. The fox is guarding the henhouse, and the henhouse is a filthy mess.
To maximize profits and to minimize expenses, this peanut dust and powder would sit there in the open, uncovered. And during that time, there was rat infestations. They found holes in the roof, and water would gather, and bird droppings would get into the water that would seep into this product. And sometimes he literally had employees sweep off some of the rat poop. This was just business as usual, the idea of put it out there.
Fortunately for the consumer, most major food conglomerations, like Parnell's biggest clients, want to make sure their providers are meeting safety standards. They require independent laboratory testing. So PCA hires several labs, including Charles Dybel's, to test its peanut samples.
Food manufacturers want to make food. They don't necessarily want to do all of that in-house. It has to do with core competencies. Their core competencies are not to run labs. That's what we do.
Accurate testing takes anywhere from 28 hours to 5 days. Dybel looks for several pathogens, including the Salmonella bacterium, which can cause vomiting, diarrhea, dehydration, and in some cases, death.
At each stage of the process, you're whittling that down to your target. And then you finally get your target organism by what we call a confirmation test. It's the last step in the process where we can say yay or nay, that this is Salmonella or this is not Salmonella.
And if the results come back positive,
one positive takes precedence over however many negatives you may have tested in that lot. You don't release it into commerce. Not only that, though, if the product itself is contaminated, all the equipment that product touched is now contaminated.
when American Greed returns, PCA test results are coming back positive for Salmonella. But that's an easy fix.
Stewart Parnell had his quality assurance manager literally take documents and use liquid paper to cover up the date and put a new date on it to satisfy food companies that wanted to buy that product.
By the mid-2000s, Stewart Parnell is making big money in peanuts. But Parnell is also turning a blind eye to glaring sanitation problems at his factories. And he runs roughshod over food safety standards.
Some of the lots that they were shipping out didn't even get tested. It was economics to him, and he didn't care about the consumer.
Parnell ships products out the door before getting test results at least 6 times between 2004 and 2006. Even more troubling, some of the tests that are being performed come back positive for Salmonella. And Salmonella is bad for business.
Stewart's brother is getting all these deals put together, and they need to feed the system. And, you know, they're getting contracts with Kellogg, they're getting contracts with a variety of other middlemen. They're saying, gimme the peanut butter, give me the peanut chips. And they couldn't keep up with the orders because they kept getting positive salmonella tests.
In October 2009, Ephren Taylor, CEO of the socially conscious investment development group City Capital, is making his way through the Bible Belt, pitching his brand on his Building Wealth tour. He recently appeared on television programs like The Today Show and 2020, promoting his best-selling book, Creating Success from the Inside Out. On this day, he visits New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, a megachurch right in the heart of Georgia. Prior to his arrival, Taylor's promotional video is shown to the congregation, piquing their interest.
Good morning, I'm Ephren Taylor, and I would like to thank Bishop Long for extending such a gracious invitation to bring Wealth Tour live to your beautiful congregation at New Birth.
Taylor's Wealth Tour is recorded on video. In attendance that day is congregant James J.B. Bailey, who was impressed by the endorsement of Bishop Long, reflected prominently on this flyer.
When Ephren Taylor was introduced by Bishop, he gave us great confidence that this was a man sent to us by God.
In the recorded video, Bishop Eddie Long readies the congregation for Taylor's message.
Your life is about to change.
You know, if Bishop said he's okay, then he's okay.
And put your hands together and receive my friend, my brother, the great Ephren Taylor.
The self-proclaimed wealth manager is also the son of a preacher and is practiced at the art of mesmerizing a congregation, as this video shows.
How many of y'all ready to tell the devil what time it is?
Taylor teaches about health, wealth, and how to get both God's way. Swept up in this fervor is J.B. Bailey.
He came out like a Southern Baptist, Holy Ghost-filled, fire-baptized preacher. He was pretty electrifying. He really kept my attention and everybody else's.
Bailey is the caregiver for his longtime friend Larry, who suffers from encephalopathy, a brain disorder. The timing of Taylor's arrival couldn't be more fortuitous.
Ephren Taylor's Wealth Tour was announced over the pulpit. I felt that this would be wonderful because we had just acquired monies from Larry's insurance, and I wanted to make sure we did the best that we could for it.
Bailey listens to Taylor's pitch and likes what he hears.
Ephren Taylor talked to us about so many wonderful avenues of investing and things to fortify our financial knowledge. You really felt like this man is brilliant.
Bailey decides to invest $14,000 with Taylor and City Capital. He's hoping the return on investment will provide better care for his friend Larry. But by the time Taylor's Building Wealth Tour comes to an end, 400 believers, including J.B. Bailey, will be bilked out of more than $16 million.
Ephren Taylor promised to help others so they could help their communities. But Ephren Taylor was really in the business of helping himself.
What we find heinous about this crime is that he was taking advantage of people in their places of worship. He said that he was a minister's son, had grown up in a black church, and that's who he was victimizing, was people in black churches.
According to the story Taylor tells in his book, he spends the first year of his life in a cold-water, tin-roof house in Mississippi. Taylor's father, Ephren Sr., wanting more for his family, earns a college degree, and the family eventually settles in Overland Park, Kansas. By age 12, Taylor turns his passion into cash.
Well, according to the Ephren Taylor myth, as a young child, he wanted a video game, went to his mom asking for money to buy one. She turned him down and said, why don't you go make one yourself? So Ephren did.
He went to the library and set it up on how to create a video game and sold it to his friends.
Young Ephren gets his first taste of professional success and likes how it feels. At age 16, he creates a job search engine with a classmate called GoFerretGo.com.
The idea behind GoFerret.com was to match teenagers who needed summer jobs with companies that needed summer help.
Taylor wins the Microsoft Teen Tech Fest Challenge, a prestigious nationwide contest, and is awarded an entrepreneurial leadership scholarship. The press shines a spotlight on the rising star, and the money follows, or so he says.
Ephren Taylor claims GoFerretGo.com made him a millionaire by the time he was 19.
The young entrepreneur routinely brags that it's worth $3.5 million, allowing him to retire as a teenager. Kathy Lerman is a plaintiff's attorney who represents victims of financial fraud.
There was never $3.5 million worth of anything in Go Ferret Go. Ephren told that story from the time he was 16 until he was 25.
As seen in these videos posted on YouTube.
In high school was $3.5 million.
And everyone bought into it.
A lot of investors felt that GoFerret.com had promise, but within a year or so, they realized it was not going to be a moneymaker, and they pulled the plug. They never made a dime.
In 2002, Taylor comes out of retirement to help his father fulfill a dream. They found the Johnson County Church of Christ in Shawnee, Kansas, where Ephren Sr. will preside as minister. Ephren Jr. calls on his church community to invest in his plan to help needy families and resurrect distressed communities.
Ephren said that he was a socially conscious investor. That's the pitch that he was giving to congregants.
The socially conscious aspect of his spiel made him seem very altruistic, a person who was not just interested in money, he was interested in community and people.
One of the first red flags that something was amiss with the Ephren Taylor story was the lawsuit that was filed by 3 Kansas City area men.
In the lawsuit, the men say Taylor, claiming to be speaking on behalf of the Johnson County Church of Christ, convinces them to invest in his plan to buy and rehab inner city houses.
Ephren's selling points to the 3 Kansas City investors and convincing them to hand over their $250,000 to him was that some of those proceeds would go to further the ministry of his dad's church. He also promised high rates of returns to investors. They thought it was a great opportunity to do good and also to make money.
It's unclear what Ephren did with the $225,000 investment money, but the deal falls apart. Taylor is sued by the 3 Kansas City investors. Although he denies any wrongdoing, Taylor signs a confession of judgment and agrees to return the investors' money, but eventually defaults.
Those victims never got their money back.
Ephren Taylor Sr. has not been implicated in any of his son's activities. In 2005, Bank of America decides not to proceed on a planned $46 million development project near the Kansas City Historic Jazz District, home to the American Jazz and the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum.
The Kansas City jazz scene of the 1930s and 40s has produced lots of big hits at the time. Count Basie and others played there. In recent years, that district had fallen into disrepair.
Taylor sees an opportunity and purchases a large portion of the surrounding land for $300,000. Taylor claims to be building hundreds of homes for the working class. The community is excited about the promising plans for the historic landmark.
It's not clear to me when he transformed from a legitimate businessman to a crook. But ultimately, he didn't put a dime into building housing in the area, and it sat fallow for years.
Despite the complete lack of progress in the development, Taylor had the public believing he had turned water into wine.
He actually acted like that historic jazz district investment was successful and that there were investors who had made a ton of money on it.
City Capital, a Nevada-based company that uses money from public stockholders to invest in developing businesses, takes notice. They hire 23-year-old Taylor as their chief executive officer, hoping he is the silver bullet needed to turn the financially challenged company around. The workday is done. The kids are home from school. It's time to sit down for dinner. Then the phone rings.
Hi, how you doing? Who are you? It's the Cancer Fund of America.
We're a 501c3 charity. We help cancer patients anywhere in the United States.
Now, what does this do?
We provide those medical supplies and items for men, women, and children with this 4-stage cancer.
We're helping the patients with this one, the people that need the help the most, fighting the disease of cancer.
And we just wanted to be sure the cancer patients can count on your continued support. Would that be okay?
According to the National Cancer Institute, nearly 1.7 million Americans are diagnosed with the dreaded disease each year. So when someone asks for a small donation to help cancer patients, it may seem like there's only one humane response.
Well, I'll go ahead and give $20. Oh, great, ma'am. Great. Thank you.
When you hear the word cancer, it sends shivers through your spine. And so when you hear of a charity that is offering to provide some level of relief or assistance to either a family or a victim of cancer, you automatically, want to help.
We all know family members who have cancer, who died of cancer, and we want to be there when this catastrophe hits the family.
It's out of this desire to help that one man has built a thriving family business.
Our mission is to lift the spirits and gladden the heart of the family, because when cancer strikes, it's so devastating to the family.
Launched in the 1980s in Knoxville, Tennessee, the Cancer Fund of America is the brainchild of a former Army medic named Jim Reynolds Sr.
Oh, he was looked up to.
Marilyn Rasmussen lives in Knoxville, where she attends church with Reynolds.
He was highly respected, at least in the church, because he had a charity.
After hearing about Reynolds' successful charity at church, Rasmussen learns what they're really doing in 2002, when her father-in-law Eddie is diagnosed with cancer.
We got a box in the mail out of clear blue sky, and it said Cancer Fund of America on it. We didn't ask for it, but it cheered my father-in-law up when he saw the box. He was real excited, and we were too.
The box, and many like it, are paid for with donations brought in by an army of telemarketers.
They called it sales. They didn't call it, fundraising. They called it sales.
At a nondescript office in the Detroit suburbs, Ebony Squirewell first goes to work for a fundraising offshoot of the Cancer Fund of America in 2003.
Some people would have to learn to be good at it, but I was good at it right away.
Squirewell sees the opportunity as more than just a way to pay the bills.
It's a very sensitive topic when it comes to cancer, because there are cancer patients in my family. So I said, oh, okay, if it's to help cancer patients, I'll do it,
It's been years since she made calls she thought were helping, but the scripted pitch she gave is still seared in her mind.
Hello, this is Ebony from the Cancer Fund of America Support Services. How are you today? He would say, fine. I said, well, great. We're calling really brief. We're continuing our Cancer Aid program, where we're helping cancer patients with their medical supplies and hospice care. Anything we can do to help these cancer patients in their time of need, we just wanted to make sure we can get you out a pledge card and count on you for your support. Would that be okay?
Over the years, Squirewell becomes an expert at bringing in cash for a cause she believes in. And while she has daily contact with the managers who run the call room, she never actually meets the man behind the curtain.
Hello, I'm Jim Reynolds. I'm president for the Cancer Fund of America. This is our national headquarters here, and we'd like to welcome you.
Before starting his charity, Reynolds worked at the well-known and unrelated American Cancer Society, which focuses on cancer research. When he sets out on his own, he creates a pitch meant to set his new charity apart.
Now, there's nothing wrong with research. I hope they find a cure for cancer through research someday. But there's so many organizations out there doing research that the few dollars we could put into research would be like a drop in the ocean.
I think the Cancer Fund of America was smart, if you could use that phrase with this group, by saying to people, we're going to help people who have the disease right now.
Art Taylor of the Better Business Bureau's Wise Giving Alliance says there's value in differentiation.
Yeah, there are others out there doing research. That's fine, but when will we ever find the cure for cancer? People need help today, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to help them right now.
There's many people out there that research is just too late for. We've got to do something to help.
CFA and their callers give potential donors a laundry list of ways they're helping.
You're going to provide them with transportation, pain medication, medical supplies. These are all things that they represented Cancer Fund would provide.
And they say it's all done on a massive scale.
The Cancer Fund of America is the only national cancer charity that has commodities and financial aid to victims of cancer as its major priority. In this past year alone, CFA has tended to the needs of some 70,000 clients with items designed to lift their spirits and improve their lives.
Helping out with pain meds, transportation, and hospice sounds like a worthy venture.
Without your help, this warehouse could stand empty.
In this video, made for telemarketers like Ebony Squirewell, they make it clear that they can't do it alone.
And over 450 hospices with more than 5,000 patients would not have some of the things necessary to ease the suffering and pain, as well as sustaining their nutritional health.
If this type of encouragement isn't enough, there are other ways to keep their fundraisers busy.
We were never allowed to accept no.
Squirewell says her job depended on hitting a quota, and persistence was essential.
If they say no, then I'll give them a smaller amount. I'll give them a smaller amount. They say no to 50, I'll say 25. They say no to 25, I'll say 15. They say no to 15, I'll say 10. I'm going to make you say yeah, because again, I'm not asking for anything today. I'm just asking to send the pledge card out to you and counting on you for your support. Is that okay?
Provided with a list of rebuttal answers meant to turn a no into a yes, Squirewell says she could always count on getting a pledge from a certain target.
Older people. You pretty much knew that the rebuttals would get the older people.
The calls made by Squirewell and many, many other employees add up in a big, big way. Between 2008 and 2012, CFA and two other cancer charities run by the Reynolds family raised $187 million. But what are they actually doing? In the fall of 2002, Marilyn Rasmussen's father-in-law, Eddie, opens the box he got from CFA and finds out.
There were a couple of bags of chips in there. There was a coloring book, there was little crayons, there was a baby doll. There was nothing there that he could use. There was nothing there to give him comfort. This is one of the items that was in the box that my husband's father received. It's the only thing that we saved because I like wild animals. I think it's kind of funny because the bottom of it says Storm Brewing. But I have to ask you, what does this have to do with helping somebody with cancer? How is this supposed to give him comfort? I mean, it's pretty, and I love animals, but it didn't help my father-in-law any. It was just a bunch of things put together in a box. It looked like somebody went through their warehouse and just threw things in the box and then just closed it up and shipped it out. And I was shocked.
Eddie Rasmussen dies a few months later, and his daughter-in-law says the Cancer Fund's box felt like one last indignity.
When he got that box, he was in a lot of physical pain. He was suffering. And that really did not help him any.
This is where it all begins. This is the back part of our building. We have a 10,000 square foot warehouse.
Jim Reynolds Sr. brings in a fortune promising to help those in need.
We begin to understand that no person is alone in our society, as long as we care and are there to help.
For years, donors are promised their money will be used to provide pain medications, to transport patients to chemo appointments, and to pay for hospice care.
You know, there were some things that you had to say in the script. You know, you had to say that you were helping cancer patients with medical supplies and hospice care.
But there's a glaring problem.
They did not purchase pain medications, they did not provide hospice care, and they did not provide transportation. None of the money went to those three programs because they simply didn't exist.
Instead, patients get boxes, like the one received by Marilyn Rasmussen's father-in-law. Some contain potentially useful items like instant breakfast, adult diapers, and bed pads. Others contain curious odds and ends that are of no particular use to cancer patients. Things like sample-sized toiletries, over-the-counter medications, toys, makeup, DVDs, and certain food items which Reynolds later tries hard to justify. It's 2008 in Varick, New York, a rural town nestled in the Finger Lakes region of the state. In the rolling fields between Seneca and Cayuga Lakes sits the farm of Karl Karsen. Karlsen is a factory worker, but the farm is his true passion. He raises Belgian draft horses.
Our farm was a hobby farm. We usually had between 25 and 30 horses on the farm.
The horses can weigh up to 2,000 pounds and cost up to $10,000 each. The impressive horses fit right in with Karl's self-image.
He's actually very impressed with himself.
I think he had the tendency to be a little bit of a storyteller and a fabricator in his own mind. Anything he could do to draw attention to himself.
Michael Karlsen is Karl's older brother.
It's all about him and money and his success, his image, his prestige.
Karlsen manages the farm on his own, with occasional help from his 4 children. 3 are from his previous marriage: Aaron, the firstborn, son Levi, and Katie, the youngest.
When times were good with Dad, they were really good. So he and I spent an awful lot of time going across the hayfields on tractors or, you know, plowing the snow in the winter. And so there was a lot of good memories that I have associated with stuff like that.
Despite this bucolic life, Karlsen is sometimes at odds with his son Levi. Levi, seen here with his high school sweetheart Cassie, doesn't fit into Karl's idealized view of his family.
Levi was into heavy metal. He hated country western, but Karl loved country western. Karl was into country western music, square dancing. He very much considered himself a country gentleman.
Levi, now 23, moves out of his father's home at age 16.
He hopped for a bit. He would go stay with friends. And then he, met and fell in love with Cassie.
He was different, and he seemed very comfortable with being different. I remember the first time I saw him, he was dressed in his goth gear and his hair was blue. And I found that, very interesting.
Shortly after she graduates high school, Cassie and Levi marry.
Our daughter was born about 6 weeks after we got married. She was the best thing to ever happen to him. He loved her so much.
The two eventually have 2 daughters, but the magic doesn't last. They divorce after a few years of marriage, but remain on good terms for their kids' sake.
And there was always lots of kisses and lots of playing, and he was very active with them. They were his whole world.
Levi and his father Karl don't have much contact, but still see each other a few times a year. On this day, November 20th, 2008, Karl calls his son and asks if he can help fix up his old farm truck. Levi has a knack for working with cars.
It was a big pickup truck, like one of those F-250, something like that. Big old farm truck.
The truck is a couple of decades old, but it's a workhorse. Karlsen uses it around the farm often. Karlsen says the truck needs repairs on its brakes. He gives Levi $50 for the job.
Levi was very well known for being able to help where he could. When it came to helping his father with things, the way a lot of times that he saw it was if he was helping, then the job was getting done.
When Levi arrives at the farm, the truck is already jacked up and ready for repairs. The plan is for Levi to do the work while Karl and his wife Cindy, Levi's stepmother, attend the funeral of a relative. As Cindy waits in their car, Karl speaks to Levi in the barn. Then he joins her, and they drive off.
That was about noontime. Left with his wife to go to a funeral in Penn, went to a reception after the funeral at the Moose Club, acted like he always acted, laughed and joked as he always did.
When Karl and his wife Cindy return from the funeral, they're stunned at what they find in the barn. Levi is pinned underneath the truck.
Came home at about 3:50 p.m., discovered his son, and screamed out for his wife to call 911.
911, what's location of your emergency?
Yes, I live at Highview Farm Road.
Okay.
I think I need an ambulance.
She was, hysterical on the phone.
He's not alive.
Is he breathing?
His chest is crushed. He's probably been under here for hours.
Levi is dead.
So I was driving to my boyfriend's house at the time, and halfway there, I got a phone call from my grandpa. And his exact words were, "Levi's gone."
While Karl is at the funeral, authorities say the thin, wobbly railroad jack that props up the truck falls over.
It sounded like a tragic accident for everything that was explained to me, that the jack slipped is what I was told. The jack slipped and the truck came down on him.
Cassie is so stunned, she can't even tell her kids what happened.
It was awful. It was absolutely awful. I couldn't even gather myself up enough to be the one to tell my children. My mother told them.
Karl Karlsen says he thinks he's cursed. This is the second time a close family member of his has died in a tragic accident.
That was our life growing up. One bad incident after another.
Karl Karsen and his family's accidents is a story that spans several decades and thousands of miles. In the early 1980s, Karlsen is a cadet in the Air Force. While stationed in North Dakota, working with nuclear missiles, Karlsen is drawn to the wife of a fellow cadet, Christina Alexander. Despite her marriage, Karl sweeps Christina off her feet.
Karl and Christina had this whirlwind romance when they met on the Air Force Base in North Dakota.
Michael Karlsen is 2 years older than his brother.
The first time we met her is when they came home. We knew nothing about her other than he called my father and said, I'm going to be a dad, and oh, by the way, I'm married. And when they got out of the service, he came home with her.
Christina and Karl Karlsen settled in central New York, close to where Karl grew up. Karlsen's family is impressed with his new wife.
She's an amazing young lady, great kid. The sun was always shining in her world. Just always had a smile on her face.
The couple eventually have 3 young children, Aaron, Levi, and Katie. Karl works at the local stone quarry, but money is tight.
We were all in the same mode in life. Young kids ourselves, newly married. I don't think any one of us had a nickel to rub between, we were all trying to survive.
Christina's family lives out west in central California, in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Her father owns a sheet metal business. He offers his new son-in-law an opportunity.
I told him, look, if you ever need a job, come on out to California and you work with me.
In the late 80s, Christina and Karl take him up on the offer and relocate to her hometown of Murphys, California. Christina's sister, Colette, says Karl is charming.
He can be very friendly, he can be very funny. So my first impression with him was that he had a great sense of humor and that he made me laugh a lot.
Christina's father finds a home for the young family.
I had a house for them that I rented up above Murphy's on the highway, or just off the highway. So I thought it might be good for them, save a little bit of money, that they could live in that house for free.
But Karl doesn't like being under his father-in-law's thumb. He eventually finds his own home deep in the woods.
It was pretty much like an old miner's shack.
Karl's mother-in-law is appalled.
And when I got there and saw the state of that house, that wasn't a house, it was a shack. It had water from the creek kind of thing. It was just old-time living.
The status of the home was, it was a downgrade. So I was a little disappointed when she told me they were moving. It was in not the greatest of condition.
What the family doesn't know is that the new home would become the site of their first great tragedy.